Hi, and welcome to this episode of Little Sprout Speech TV. Grab your pen and paper because today we are here in my kitchen because I just thought it would be fun to make a video in my kitchen for no other reason than change of scenery. And I'm going to give you 3 tips on why I think you should not ignore your 2-year-old if they're not talking and what you should do about it. So here are 3 tips, so get that pen and paper ready. Tip number 1 is once you've spoken with a child's pediatrician, if the pediatrician's not concerned and you still, your gut is telling you that something just doesn't seem right, I encourage you to pursue it further. Are there children that do talk late? Yes. The percentage of them, I'd say, is very low compared to the percentage of children that need some form of intervention, meaning we need a speech pathologist to step in and help the child get started, and it's much easier the younger they are and much more successful early on than if you continue to wait. So I'm going to encourage you to follow your gut. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to look for other signs of communication that your child is engaging in, things that they're doing that shows you that they're trying to talk to you even though they may not be using words yet, so do they use their finger to point to things, so I'm in my kitchen and there's an apple over here, sorry about that. If they want an apple, will they go, apple? Ooh, look at that bruise on this apple. ADD moment, sorry. Will they point to it? If you say apple, do they understand what you are saying? So if you say, take a bite of the apple, will they take a bite? Or do they kind of just sit there and look at you like they don't really quite get it? That's something to look for, to have an idea of how they're understanding and how they're communicating with you. The other thing you can look for too is, does your child use any other type of gestures, use their hands to try and tell you something? Or do they grunt like when they point to try and get your attention? Do they change their facial expressions? Like if they're really happy, do you notice that they smile? Are they looking at you? So there's all these different things that you want to consider when your child may not be talking yet, because they may still be communicating with you, but they may just not be using words. And you're going to be asked these questions, especially if you do go for a speech or language screening, which is tip number 3. So tip number 3 is, if you are super concerned, what I want you to do is, oftentimes you can contact at the age of 2 your local school county, and they have free speech language screenings and assessments that they can come in, usually into your home, and do at that young of an age. And that's great because, hey, it's free. You can get your questions answered. You can kind of check in and see, hey, how are things going? Do I need to be concerned? Do I not need to be concerned? But I encourage you to do this over waiting, because waiting is just going to make things a little more stressful for you, especially if a year later at the age of 3 your child's still not talking. And it also makes things harder on the child, because the longer you wait, if they're still not talking, let's say by 3, then therapy can take longer and it can be more difficult to start getting your child to the point where they start using words to communicate. So starting younger is better, and there's a lot of research to support that these days. So let's review our 3 tips. Tip number 1 is to follow your gut. So even if you've had a professional tell you, oh, they're fine, if your gut is telling you something is off, follow your gut and get them checked out. Number 2 is to kind of look at what your child does as a whole. This is great information to then give to the next professional you speak with, and tell them, if your child's pointing to things, do they grunt? Do they use any words at all? If they're not using any words, then do they make different facial, expressions to show you what they need? Or do they follow directions, or they seem to understand what you're saying to them? These are all important things that you're going to be asked. So it's good to start jotting those things down now. And then tip number 3 is look into the free services that your local school, county, or an area may offer for a speech and language screening and or evaluation. So I hope that these tips are helpful. I look forward to talking to you guys same place, same time next week. This is Hallie Bulkin signing off.